When did the first Static come out? Like 1999, right?
I want people to see the skaters and that city and the experience with the enthusiasm and inspiration that I did.
Electromagnetic being, I get charged. Rhymes, I run right through them like a big box of Trojan Large. MCs try to hang, but it's a Brooklyn thing. Poison slang.
Shire was like, oh mate, Magee is not stoked you're here. He's
Trying to make a video here, dudes. It's like when he always going about spots, but then he's got a skate park trick, and I'm like, how did he and Josh like let that in?
Static 3 was the first Static video I saw. I think I downloaded it on LimeWire.
Don't need a German Luger, but shoot more shit than Stern Ruger. Dirty rottens coming through, punks cling to their guns. Don't start none, it won't be none. Cause
like, fuck man, can I just land a trick before I have to turn the camera on?
There's been long days where I've like been practically hallucinating.
Chris Roberts was trying to trick, and that was probably the longest.
It held him back filming this part because I've been saving his best footage for 6 years.
You shouldn't have that mouth dirty rotten for the longest. We knew you were plotting on the downfall. Who stands tall, lick the balls. I'm not like that, so I smash out pussy walls on the low. Oh no, on the high, I get high, praise to the most high. Try to battle me, step up and die like the Ark of the Covenant.
The premiere, it gives the audience a lasting memory beyond just clicking play on their fucking YouTube control button. I really believe this is the last Static video.
Static.
46.
Oh shit, 46. Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Looking good.
You're like a year older than me, right?
I'm 48.
I'm 32.
Okay. The Static videos were obviously influenced by Use and Exposure 3, particularly. It's an old model. It's kind of like a classic, like full-length skate video style, like structure, but choosing skaters where there's more to their skating than what they're actually just doing on the board. I mean, it's so blatantly an Eastern Exposure influence because it's skaters with parts and then cities, you know, focused on as well.
Like, I feel like Static 2 was the one where you kind of found what the theme of it was going to be, or when you started following that formula, because Static 1 is very different to all the other videos.
Static 3 was the first Static video I saw. I'm trying to think of how old I was, but it would have been 2008 because I think I downloaded it on LimeWire. I think that's
nice.
that's how I got it, because I was a little kind of internet skate video kid, so I was like, oh yeah, let's look up all these videos. And as soon as I got into found out that I could download, I would just put like skateboarding into LimeWire and just see what came up. And I think Static was one of those videos that came up, but it happened to come around a time when like obviously a lot more like forum stuff was going on in skating as well, so there was like quite a lot of local scene videos that were getting a lot of shine. And
Escape Perception, was it?
yeah, Escape Perception, and then like Slap as well obviously had like, they would always put links to videos and stuff, because this is obviously I would buy a video now, but I was a broke teenager back then, so I was just like, whatever. I didn't really care at that time. I was just like, oh, whatever. But that was like also the beginnings of like YouTube as well. So like little parts would get dropped on certain sort of YouTube channels for the very beginning, like 2008, like super early 2008, 2009, super early YouTube. And like I remember like finding out about so many interesting sort of videos back then. And that sort of period from 2008 to 2010 was like you had Static videos like This Time Tomorrow and Skylarking and all these kind of like interesting sort of, I guess, scene videos, but got an internet global underground sort of distribution as well as their sort of hard releases. So that was like the kind of period that like changed what I liked about skate videos and like what I yeah, I don't know, like what I loved about skating, and Static was like part of that. So Static 3 kind of came in tow with all those other videos that were coming out around those couple of years. Make Friends as well. Obviously, I'd had DVDs of Lost and Found before that, but yeah, I think that period of time, that was probably when I saw it first, and that sort of marked a big shift in like what I saw skateboarding as.
When I first went to DC, Washington DC, for the Rising video, we were filming from like a Florida video, and there were all these skaters at Pulaski, and it wasn't like a young scene. It was like a seasoned, like John Ige, you know, like I'd never heard his name ever, and then I go to see this dude skate Pulaski, and he's super down to film, and just being like, you know, I mean, as a filmer who wants to showcase something that people haven't seen, it was like, holy shit, this is like a, you know, an orgy of talent that I would have, could be the first, you know, there was other filmers there, but, you know, like in my mind, I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Was Static the first American video to have sort of a dedicated UK section? Because obviously there was UK footage in videos, but was that the first video that actually
411? I think that's why European skating was so poorly viewed in the US, because the only only venue or, you know, portal that we were presented it through was 411, and you could tell Josh Friedberg, to his, you know, not to criticize, because he was doing you know, an insane task, you know, performing a crazy task there, but you could tell it was like the thing that he was like, oh fuck, okay, what free music do we have? Like British rapper, okay, put it over, just, you know what I mean? It just was always such an afterthought, the European section, whatever, there was a name for it too, and that was the only thing I remember seeing, and then the only thing that actually stood out was when that random footage of Penny skating the launch ramp in that plaza, wherever the fuck that was.
I mean, even Penny got hated on at first by Americans, you know what I mean? There's the infamous story of everyone like pros spitting on him at the Northampton competition, which is a true story, you know what I mean? Like,
oh my God.
Witness that, you know what I mean? But like the first Blueprint industry section got turned down by 411, and then they asked Ortiz, and he was like, yeah, because he just wasn't into it, or he thought it was shit or whatever. And that was, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's on the end of the sumo video. That was meant to be like,
oh really?
Yeah, so it's kind of like some dude in California that was like, fuck this shit, no, right, you know what I mean? That was also the impetus of trying to, like, when something went off in my head, I was like fuck it, and I'll just try and make the next video, wait for the world, like on a level where Americans can kind of like be into it, you know?
Right.
So it kind of made it, because like Steve Douglas was like, well, maybe we'll put it out now as a different. I was like, no, that needs to stay like not untouched just as it was, because that is the impetus of like that's the origin story of me being like
right.
Driven.
That's the thing. That's because that was 100% what fueled me in Florida, because we just felt so ignored. I mean, all the East Coast, even after Eastern Exposure, we just felt so ignored that it was the fire that was like, you know, fueling that drive to make these videos and stuff.
I think there's a lot of clout. Like, I think there's people like Al definitely has that where he wants to shine a light on something, you know, and he loves all the cameras, and he's spending his own money, and he doesn't really care how many people or how many views you see it, but he's going to do it anyway, because, you know what I mean, like for me, you know what I mean, I'm like not really wasn't really interested in kind of Brighton stuff, because like loads of videos came out which I wasn't really into from that area, you know, and now Al is kind of doing it regardless, you know, like it's not, don't be offended, but like the spots aren't great, Al, you know what I mean? They're like tough to skate.
The beauty, that's the beauty.
I didn't go there with the goal of I didn't think I had a plan to do a London section, because it's weird. I already know when I first got there, Shire was like, oh mate, Magee is not stoked you're here. He's not stoked, you know. He kept telling me this. And he was making him out to be like he was gonna knock me out when I saw him in person. He's like, oh man, he's like, because he would like, and you know, Shire was probably like making it more than it was, but I didn't, you know, I know you couldn't go into a skate scene just assuming, especially back then, when there's like 20 filmers in the entire world. You don't just go to a city and say, oh, I'm gonna make a London section. So it was more just like I wanted to find somebody to do a part with. And then I was, met all those dudes, and I got a lot of, filmed a decent amount of stuff with local guys. Like Snowy was one of those early guys where it's just like him as like a young kid at South Bank. It just was like, just wearing a white t-shirt down to his knees, and like his deep, the way Snowy talks, he's got that really deep, and I was just like, it captured my imagination.
Are you're romanticizing Snowy, man? Like, mine's like a double-edged sword where half of it is like, yeah, I agree, and half I'm like, oh mate, it was a fucking nightmare at some stage.
But you know what I mean, though? Like, to stumble on a scene that the U.S., as far as the U.S. media, that's all you're relying on in skateboarding. There was no London scene. There was like Mike Manzuri and like, the flip guys, so going there and seeing like a super deeply established scene with like rad styles and like the backdrop of that city, I was like, it was like a new thing, for me that I wanted to capture.
Didn't it crossed over as well, didn't it?
What do you mean?
I'm pretty sure like Lost and Found, Fully Flared, and Static 2 all crossed over, no?
Yeah, pretty. Yeah.
Yeah, so I was like, trying to make a video here, dudes.
Right. No, it's understandable.
But it worked out.
And
but we helped each other out.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
He filmed for Lost and Found. I gave him some stuff for and Massey, obviously, I'm not gonna deny Massey the chance to like do his thing,
Yeah, and I don't think I asked. I have a really bad memory, but I'm pretty sure I didn't ask Chris. I think it somehow came down to him offering that he would be down to help, and I can't remember. I think maybe that was a VX that I sent out there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he started helping, and I didn't expect that he was going to film as much as he did. So when he sent me the tapes, I was like, super stoked that it was so much stuff. And then that obviously, there was like the Ollie Todd stuff got me, like intrigued about trying to do something else like in the future with him. Pullman, I really liked Pullman's stuff that he got for that video. That's too.
That's his best stuff,
like,
I think.
Yeah. Got a cool presence on camera where I was like, if that he was another guy, I was kind of like, damn, he's pretty intriguing. Each video, really, I mean, realistically, each video with Static 1, it was Washington, D.C. Static 2, I guess not. I mean, anyways, but then Static 3, London, and New York, and then like each video I get really inspired by a city, and that kind of get, London, obviously, it's like has had such a massive like impact on me, just going there and creeping around at night.
That location focus has been like something in all of the Static vids, and I wanted to ask as well, like with Dan with Make Friends, was because you kind of went with the intros of each part in that, mentioning like on the city that they're from, on the town that they're from. Was that a reference to like previous stuff that had like the Static series, for example, where there was kind of a location focus, or was it just like a way to intro the person? Because I think that's always been a theme in the Static vids as well, like the location focus. I've always really
for me, it was just more the fact that like kind of people were becoming scattered to the wind a little bit, and it was just a way to kind of link back to like, oh, it's a British company, like Baines was in Berlin and stuff like that. But it was a bit different because with that video, because it like Blueprint went bust like halfway through it, so it was never going to be finished. And then there was loads of stuff with like Slam and Marshall and stuff where they kind of all this gnarly business shit was going down, and yeah, it was a bit of a pessimistic video, which actually I felt like when I watched Josh's new one, like there's a bit of a leitmotif of like death and the end and all that stuff like that. So I feel like I was going to ask you, maybe it's something that you're going to delve into at a later date, but like it just felt, it was rad, but it felt very pessimistic, and that's kind of the way that I felt when I was making Make Friends. I wanted to finish it, but like there was a load of shit going on that I just kind of put into the edit, which won't make sense to anyone else, but when I watch back I'm like, shit, that was a pretty gnarly time.
But I felt like, or I'm assuming for you, there's a certain point when you really settled into the fact that it's like, okay, I'm gonna make work that's just like rubbing people's nose in the fact that it's British. You know what I mean? Like making it, like settling into like, okay, I'm owning the fact that this is like, that's your kind of like, I don't know. I feel like that's, maybe Waiting for the World wasn't in that direction, but it seems like each video.
But,
yeah.
but like I think in the end that was the undoing of it as well, because it was a bit like cup of tea, and it was right for Lost and Found, but once you go past that, it becomes a bit cheesy.
The challenge in making a skate video, as somebody who does it like, more than once, it becomes kind of like what you do, is fighting the formula of what we're expecting, like, because part of your psyche is you want to satisfy people with what we have come to know as a skate video and satisfy the expectations. But then also a big part of for me is there's a voice in my head saying people the only way to make a splash is if you do something different, and the best way to do something different is to own what's different about you or your scene. I mean, I'm sure like Al and Dan would both understand like how it's like you finish a video. I mean, there's two things. You finish a video, it's the massive relief the second that DVD master, like the company tells you it checks out and it's going into duplication. But then obviously there's that other side where it's like, it's like probably when an 18-year-old kid finally moves out of a parent's house, it's like, yeah, you definitely, that's significant. But then for me, it's like, it's always been, for fucking almost 30 years now, it's always been that outlet where it's like, for me, mostly it's like either it's music, I'll hear a song or something weird, and it just cues up an idea or like a feeling in me that I'm like, fuck, this would be so perfect for a static intro or something like that.
Weird. Same stuff that drives you.
This guy who helped me film for this video was when I was struggling with like a creative direction for this one. He was like, I don't understand. He's like, dude, the last one, you got to just run with the theme of the last one, the trains and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, dude, no, that's the, the last thing I want people to watch it and not know what to expect. And, I always want it to change every video to be different. But this one, I've learned to say never, but I really believe this is the last static video. And so I wanted there to be countless nods, to the history, so there's the candles that are a nod to Static 2. And so there's countless little things throughout the video that are like that. And that's where in like, the intro has the same as Static 1, the intro to Static 6, the ending with it has like radio, radio feedback and stuff. And it's the exact same way that the Static 1 intro ends. There's a bunch of that stuff, but then it's like, it's dangerous because I'm like, well, I don't want people to be like, oh, he's reusing, you know what I mean? Like there's probably not that many people
who... after when did the first Static come out? In like 1999, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're putting in like 25 years of history there, so you can start referencing. I think you can. I mean, you know what I mean? I don't know if you've seen it, but I just did that edit with my mate Connor, and that's like all references to like old videos, you know what I mean? At the moment, if you're going to edit anything and you want it to, I mean, everything's on the feed where it's scroll, watch it. And I mean, most videos that people edit are like, which are rad videos, which are all crew videos or whatever, whether it's GX or whatever, but realistically, it's just like a lot of edits to me for like timelines when you go on a trip and you put like a load of tricks together on a timeline, and then you show people like, oh, this is what we got today. That's what it feels like to me, but that's not like a satisfying part of making a video editing. So now I spend loads of time editing something, and if I'm gonna do that, and fuck it, I might as well like make little references or make a little world or themes or whatever that throw back, and then people, even if they don't watch it, somebody might say, oh, did you see that thing? You know what I mean? And then somebody, no, I'll go back and watch it, or oh, I'm gonna watch that again, and then oh yeah, I did see that thing. You know what I mean? It's like, I can't remember, like you hit me up about something the other day that you noticed, And I'm like, oh, that's good because no one else has mentioned that. So really, it's like,
they're like, it's like basically an Easter egg that now, especially with all these nostalgic reference Instagram accounts, I'm not saying that this is why personally that I was doing it, but knowing that, well, the more little things you hide in there, the more opportunity there is for people to find it. Like Dan saying, like 2 months, 3 months from now, people who've seen it once or maybe twice will hear from somebody else, somebody referencing something like, oh, what? I didn't notice that. Then they'll be, hopefully, there are little things that'll occasionally bring people to revisit it, which is the biggest challenge of this era, is getting people to care about and care about something, and to leave a lasting impact, and for people to revisit something, because it's almost like doesn't happen at all anymore.
Everything you were just saying, you only get that sort of approach to skate video release through independent outlets now, because any brand is going to go, well, obviously we're going to put this straight to internet, because like that's the most how we get engagement. So the art of the skate video, like independent skate video, isn't dead. It just only exists really in independent circles, because that's the only place that it can be allowed to flourish, because anywhere else it's pretty much there's skate company involved, there's money involved, so it just needs to go out and get seen by as many people as possible. Whereas that's not necessarily like our goal. Obviously, you want as many people to see it as possible, but it's not numbers really. It's about like quality over quantity.
Totally, that's an issue with the format of, and why I think the full length is still so necessary for people that want, like video makers who want to do more with the format than just capture skating and put some songs to it,
Yeah, but it's only getting worse, really. Like it's only getting more short form, which is difficult, because I suppose a lot of filmers say the same thing. It's like, I'm working for a brand, they're asking me to do like vertical aspect ratio stuff, but my stuff is 16:9 or my stuff is 4:3. I don't want it to be, and you see it all the time with VX as well, like getting cropped so poorly on social media, and it like is frustrating as a filmmaker that puts so much time into these things, and then stuff gets shared and it's getting shared at like 4:5 aspect ratio cropped VX, and it just looks like dog shit, and it's just like, it's such a shame. So it's really important that like things like this keep happening to show that this is the format where this kind of content works best, so you always have a benchmark you can go back to and be like, oh look, well, we've at least, these videos came out, it may be less than before, but these videos came out, and we can always go back to them to show you like what this form should look like.
Patience doesn't pay in the modern like business side of skateboarding, or just in anything. Patience doesn't pay off, or pay. But I do that's the common held belief. But I do think if what you consider pay, meaning something that actually has a lasting impression on people, then I do think patience is one of the more important things to have, because that's an experience people don't get to have anymore. People don't have to exercise patience, and so when they do, I think it's the best, the last way you can hopefully cause a piece of media to last in people's minds and leave them with an experience that they'll remember. And that's like a lot of the people I saw at premieres were telling me about other static premieres. They, the Philly one, there was a guy who's like, I was at the one, he's telling me places that the Static 2 premiere was in Philly. I don't remember. I don't even remember. But he's like, yeah, man, it was at the, whatever, the university, their theater, and is like, and telling me things that happened. I'm like, see, it proves the point. This guy, it was an experience for him. It was, he remembers the video, but also that experience. And it's like, if you can give that experience to people, it's like one of the few, other ways you can help make it last. And it's like, because that's the biggest challenge, like of our age. Like I keep saying that, is making people remember it for more than 5 minutes after they fucking watched it,
Maybe, I don't know, maybe 4. Yeah, I think. Oh, I don't know. It's 3, 4, but then also I really like 6 because they're the one. Like 3 and 4 is what I grew up watching. 4 came at a time that I was like really inspired by skate videos. 3 like brought me into that world, and now I'm an adult and I can fully appreciate like videos when they come out. So 6 has that like adult appreciation, being like a proper filmer. Do you know what I mean? So for different reasons, but I guess 4 just because of where I was at with skating at the time and filming and stuff, and it kind of brought me back into the world of filming and made me really excited about it.
I mean, I already said 3, but like it's tough because the ego part and the Pudio part is at all time. You know what I mean? But then 3 is the complete package. Nate Prasad song, oof, banging.
Easter afternoon, my mama told me, baby, stay clean, there's no in between. Shine on me, baby, 'cause it's raining in my heart.
It's 3's the one that feels the most like complete, to me. I like the for 4, I like the aesthetic and the like I was happiest with the art direction around it, but it just became such a massive mountain, that it's difficult for I know that a video is more easily received if you can watch it in one sitting, and so that's what it was an unsolvable problem. That's why it got split into 2 videos, but I would probably, let's say that's my favorite if it was absorbed, if you could absorb it in one sitting. Sorry. So let's just say, let's say 3. I always knew I didn't have the style, or I always felt like I didn't have the style to be a sponsored skater. So I never pursued it. I never sent a sponsor me tape. And I was surrounded by talented people to where I just never, I always thought I was like super low on the totem pole of style and ability. So I always, so in that sense, I never thought like I had a promise as a career in skate, like to be a skater. But there's a thing that as a filmer you go through where you always, especially when you're like the audio video, where it's like I get thrust into something where I don't know these people, they don't know me, and you as a filmer you want to prove to people that you can skate. So there's this weird thing, where it's like I want them to, like, it's like this ego thing that I don't want them to just think I'm like another filmer who doesn't skate. So there's always that, but then there's also just that fucking, you go to the best spots in the world and that you get there and I want to fucking skate, it's like the second you start skating, the skaters start looking at you in a way, you know what I mean? Or maybe I'm projecting, but they're looking at you in a way like, yeah, don't start actually having fun, because we're about to start filming on this thing, especially Barcelona, man. All those, when we first started going to Barcelona, and you're like, I can't remember any of the names of the spots, but you're just like, every one of them's a skate park, and it's like, I want to fucking skate. But you just know, it's like, nope, nobody will hear it. Everybody here wants you to stop skating. You just know it in the back of your mind the whole time. You're like, fuck, man, can I just land a trick before I have to turn the camera on? So yeah, that 360 flip's one of the few. It was like one of those things I'd been dreaming about it. So when we got there, it was like, I don't care what anybody tries. I'm gonna try this until I die, or but I'm not going to stop and feel guilty about not filming somebody else,
Yeah, I don't have that problem. That's good. No, I came to a realization because I kind of got sponsored by accident, and that's how I kind of got into like knowing all those people. For some reason, I got flowed, like distributed boards or whatever, that became the precursor to Blueprint, and then that was kind of not that good, so we kind of talked them into making Blueprint. But eventually I just figured, like, why am I actually sponsored? And I've taken these boards and I felt really guilty about it, which is why I'm quite gnarly with skaters now, because, or people that like take stuff and aren't that good, because it's kind of almost like making that self-flagellation for me doing that when I was younger. Like, why did I do that? Like, when I think about it, I'm like, why did I do that? Why did I take boards? Why was I sponsored? And now I'm like, well, I'm just going to be gnarly to anyone that isn't really putting their finger out or is just taking boards and doing nothing. So that's my reasoning.
Yeah, I don't know. It depends. Like, sometimes, usually I'll have my board with me anyway. I have my filmer board and my actual skateboard. But I don't tend to film without like a specific. If I wanted to film an actual clip, then I would have it in mind already, and probably would go out specifically with my board. Usually, we're going on a filming session to certain spots. And it's usually planned. And if there's something I want to try, then I'll specifically bring a board. It's not like super spur of the moment, you know.
One of those wheels that Kenny Anderson was making, where you can take them off and they're soft. You know what I mean? Like soft covers.
Yeah.
I know.
That would help.
They still haven't come out. Yeah. That's why I'm a lot, like, people have complained to me about audio, like being able to hear my wheels in my past videos, because I just almost, I'd say 80% of the time I never brought a cruiser or a filmer board. I would just, because I want to, you know, like I still want to skate somewhere. I want to be able to skate. So I on trips I would just bring my regular board. So
that's interesting, because I wondered, I like to find out whether like filmers take their skateboard or a cruiser, because I don't ever really, like, I wouldn't want to, I don't think I could film an actual line on my skateboard. Like, I think like I wouldn't be used to it. It would like feel weird. I'd feel like I'd feel the cracks more and I might fall over more likely. So yeah, I don't know. I always wondered that, but then it does make some things harder. Like if you're trying to skate and you actually have to like pop up a curb or whatever, if you're on a cruiser, it's really, really hard. So
weird,
harder. Yeah. So
I would try to show the entire spot before the skater hit it, but not in a way that was boring. So the idea is so you can see the context of, like, you know, the run up, how the bump to bar, how far it is, and like capture kind of like a photo first and then move into the environment. But like Japanese videos went to like a whole nother level of, they'll show like literally 4 angles of a skater approaching a spot to kind of give you the idea of, this is why this is difficult, this is how narrow the runway is, this is how rough the ground is, you know. And so for me, I feel like in hindsight, looking at the videos like Static 3, I think it was more just trying to, like, because there's so much shots of like smokestacks on the roofs of buildings and windowsills, and trying to make that kind of a theme that I know what you're talking about with like Steiner specifically. A few of his lines, I keep going and showing the architecture. There's things you do that aren't necessarily like, you don't map it out, you know, and then at the end you're kind of like, you realize there's a style that you're capturing. And I think for me, it's kind of trying to put the viewer in that environment and make you feel, I don't know, but that's just what in hindsight looking at, I'm like trying to give people that feeling of being there and seeing it in the way that because I feel like we all see things differently, but I see it, and, you know, I want people to see the skaters and that city and the experience with the enthusiasm and inspiration that I did.
It definitely varies. It's like, it's how it's other than filming, that's like our complete aesthetic choices. That's like that's how we're creative, you know what I mean? Like it's those little nuances that like that give you difference from one editor to another. I definitely quite like that I quite like fast-paced cutting. That's just like a preferential thing, but being really kind of OCD on every single thing has to be 100% on the beat, whether it's the cut from shot to shot or the land. Like everything is always on beat. Like I find it really stressful if it's not. But like they're just like little nuances that make people's stuff unique, you know. What you were saying before as well was really interesting with the Japanese filmers as well, about like that's how you kind of show the spot off, and I think that's actually kind of been added as a part of the visual language of like contemporary independent skate video, where like that Japanese thing of like showing the spot or like a little pre-shot is like a kind of prerequisite now for like most filmers I talk to. They'll be like, oh yeah, cool, you did it. Could you just get a pre-shot, like, and just do the the pop into the grind, or the, you know, can you just like do the little run-up bit at the start? Again, that's just sort of like become part of the language, and that's definitely like just part of like, if I filmed a clip, I'd be like, oh, do you think you could just do the pop up the curb again just from a second angle so you can see the spot? And that's now just like part of the way we do it.
You know, I try to say, especially there, but I've said it in other interviews, how the Japanese had this massive influence they've had specifically on the VX 1000 video independent filmmaker or video maker underground. You know, there is this network, you know, and Al's definitely, you know, like one of the more current, you know, contributors in that network, but that network has been so influenced by the Japanese skate scene, but without knowing it to a certain degree, because Magenta and Yon Talendier took a lot from that scene, and not like it was taken. I just mean they were heavily influenced, and then Yon and Magenta in their earlier days had a huge influence, I think, on that VX underworld. And so it's like, and Colin Reed was very much influenced by that too. So it had this huge influence, but they never got credit for it. It's really interesting, but it'd be cool to talk about those factors of how that, you know, we all have this little influence in different ways, and how you see it manifest, and it becomes signatures of other filmmakers, but they picked it up from, you know what I mean? It picked it up indirectly, you know, like, oh, they were a fan of Magenta, but they were actually copying, you know, Morita's filmmaking from 20 years ago, you know?
Yeah, it's like a virus of skate filmmaking
Style.
Tropes that you just pick up.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's so spot on. The reason I kind of fully got back properly into filming was because of all that early Magenta stuff. But they always made an effort, like Johan always made an effort to say, like, you know, we are really inspired by the Japanese guys. But the amount that they did in terms of inspiring a whole sort of generation of people to kind of pick up the VX again.
No, it's the same. Jake Harris is kind of fundamental in bringing, I mean, maybe not to that extreme, but just the fact that he's someone who can actually fucking skate like really well, and like Ollie downstairs and stuff like that with a VX is kind of fundamental to bring it back too.
Yeah, that's like
for sure.
No, sorry, that's actually a really good point, because that's like a big part of it now, isn't it? Like a lot of filmers these days, especially in the sort of VX world, it's like there's somewhat of a prerequisite to be able to skate as well. You look at
Zach,
Jake is a good example. Zach is a perfect example. Like the stuff he's doing, the hill bombs he's doing is arguably sometimes gnarlier than what the skater is doing. And then you've got like pros, and you've got people like Gustav, who's just obviously like incredible at skating, but is a really good filmer as well. So it's like this crossover has become like moving more away from being a filmer and just being like a skater with a camera who knows how to use it.
On the other side, there's just film long lens.
I know, but that's the thing, because I almost feel like that's a different, they're like two avenues that have gone off in separate directions, you know? Totally. And that's why, you know, the thing you said before about like tropes that get kind of carried on, that whole, the kind of Strobeck trope has gone off in that way, and then you've got sort of the underground thing going that way, so it's like I don't know, it's interesting.
I mean, personally, I liked Strobeck when he was at his best with that stuff. I mean, also, you've got to remember, he probably filmed some of the best VX footage of the era as well, you know, for like Workshop and Habitat. But like when he, with his zoomy stuff, I enjoy it when it works. I mean, he kind of took it a bit too far in some videos, but I actually enjoy it. I don't know how you felt, Josh. Or you just no.
No. I'm like you said, when it's just tough because everything's internet videos, and it's hard, you know, like Cherry, like I think is probably the one I paid the most attention to, you know. But yeah, no, likewise. I mean, and it also, like you said, you know, for somebody like him, who's like, he was a big contributor to Static 1, you know what I mean? Like he's been in it for a long ass time, and he filmed so much great street footage with the VX, and so, you know, I made jokes about it, of course, you know, because it is, you know, it's a easy thing to joke around about, but I definitely respect it.
It's more the imitators that I joke about. It's
exactly.
Why are you trying to do that? Because you're not doing it like he's doing it at his best, and it's like 1,000 times worse. You know, it's making.
And he created his own look. He definitely created his own like vibe. So,
but then it's like I
like
feel like a lot of filmers contemporarily now are just sort of cosplaying as him, like in how they do it, and it almost becomes a bit of a joke. It's like, okay. Like, I'm not saying that because that stuff can look great. Like I'm not dissing him. I'm not dissing like. There's loads of modern videos, like contemporary filming styles that I'm into. I think it's awesome. Yeah. But like, a lot of the time, sometimes it's just so contrived, like so much a direct rip off.
Do you think like old kind of heads like me and you who would film a project over X amount of years, you know, are kind of fucking over skaters that we're using for that project now, because in that time they could be putting all this stuff on Instagram and maybe getting sponsored and making a name for themselves. We're making them like film this kind of like epic part or part, however the part's going to be in the end, and they're not.
It is true. Like Dan's like, you're hitting the mark on that it is to a certain degree. It held like there's that guy John Barrett Gwyneth. Who's got like one of those difficult names to pronounce, so that kind of holds him back already. Yeah. But he's one of those guys.
You remember it, though.
Yeah. But he's one of those guys who, it held him back filming this part, because I've been saving his best footage for 6 years. You know?
So how old is he by the time he finishes it? That's what I'm saying.
He's like 28 or something like that. So
you know what I mean? It's like kind of nice when I think about it, like finishing that collar part. Like he finished that when he was 30, and it's like, okay, so now what? Yeah.
I know which skaters that I've worked with are the ones who take the longest, and but I can't think. I have such a bad memory. I can't think of a specific example, except for the fact that Montoya went to that nollie heel bag nose blend on that picnic table. He went there with Roger Bagley like 5 times, and like the amount of tapes and time that Roger put in trying to get that. And then I went there once, and he landed it in like within 20 minutes, and that was the reverse, where I got out of jail free. But I tend to film with people who take a long time to get stuff. So when I end up filming with somebody like the rare moments where I'll film with one of those skaters that like that Xander Mitchell kid out of Canada, where he just like everything is within like 5 minutes. It's fucking insane. And it makes me think of like, man, imagine being like a primitive filmer, or like one of those guys where it's easy.
So at some stage, Ollie Barton, when he was working at Transworld, got me on a Transworld trip, and I don't know if it was like to try out, kind of help John Holland with stuff. But I was just like, you know what I mean? It kind of blew a lot of opportunities when I was younger. But we went to this trip for Time to Shine, and we ended up, for whatever reason, we were going to do it all in like Nice, kind of around that area. And then we ended up being like, this is not working, fuck it, we'll just drive to Barcelona. So we drove to Barcelona, and Chris Roberts was trying to trick. And that was probably the longest time I've ever sat. I think it was like 5 to 6 hours or something. It's the fakey nose grind switch laser out, and obviously they didn't even use my angle, but like, that was probably like the longest thing.
Probably like me, every time I try a trick, I don't really have that many. I mean, there's been long missions on certain tricks. There's been long days where I've like been practically hallucinating after filming for so long, but like that's just normal. Well, not normal, but we've all been there. But like in terms of actually like tricks, probably me. I take ages to do anything. So
that's a good answer. I'm exactly the same. I never land something in less than 4 or 5 hours.
Yeah, same. I think if you like held a gun to my head to decide, I'd probably say Jake Johnson. But then there's like a whole list of others that I would choose. But that one is probably the one that makes me like, that hits the hardest for me. Just in terms of like watching it, just like I don't know, it makes you really feel something.
feel like because it's Pulio, there's probably not as much of Josh in that part as he wanted there to be. So I would say out of static parts, it's probably the Nate Broussard part because that feels like it's kind of all Josh. Is that fair to say, Josh?
Yeah, to a certain degree, I guess. I mean,
Like, he would probably had more say than Nate would have done in his part.
oh,
as well.
for sure.
That's what
for
I'm saying.
for sure, yeah.
But
yeah.
those two parts, I don't know. I'd have to go with those two parts. But like, if it's one, then it's got to be Pulio because I'm just a massive fan, and I think that is his best medium. And Josh kind of whittled him down to how reined him in. Josh kind of reined him in, you know.
Now that you've found your paradise, this is your kingdom to command. You can go outside and polish your car, or sit by the fire in your Shangri-La.
I mean, it's one of those ones where it's like, how, it's like insulting to choose one part, but I feel like when I think of like when somebody says the word static, as of in the term of the series, I probably think of Rupp's part first. And I feel like his part kind of set the tone, in my opinion, for like the bar of like the type of skater, the feeling, like being fortunate to where I stumbled on those weird songs and it worked, because they were weird out of the box music to use and at the time. So it just kind of, I feel like to me that kind of, I think it's a safe answer too, because it's the first video, last part kind of set the tone. So I'll say Rupp. It's so silly to say this because coming from a whole generation, all of us are from a generation that didn't have to go into the military or fight, a war. My dad was drafted into the Vietnam War, but it's kind of akin to going into like I hate to say a war, but it's like being in a military service where you guys go through these like tough situations with these guys, you know, like on a regular basis in different cities, and you're traveling, you have to like give up a lot of your comfort, you know, a lot of your like all your personal time, you know, and then as a filmer in New York, and maybe, you know, probably in London, where you don't use a car for anything, and it's like it's so physically taxing. And so once it's all over, it's like you've been through a war with these guys. So it's like it's different than just like going to school with somebody, or
that's a good
having a
comparison.
job with somebody. Yeah.
The one thing that is quite difficult being in a small place where it's so peripheral to a proper scene outside of London, because it's like 1 hour outside of London, is that like people either go there or they very seldom stay. So I guess one of the difficult things is just sort of feeling more isolated as you get older, as your scene sort of shrinks, especially your scene of peers shrinks. It can be quite difficult when you're not in like a really big city like London, because in London you always do have like there's always things going on, whereas here it's like there kind of isn't really. And as you get older as well, like you get, especially with the filming, something you were touching on before about like you can really tell when someone appreciates what they're doing. They appreciate the collaboration. Like, for example, when I filmed that part with Dougie, Dan, like he just,
definitely.
He's so appreciative. He's just so like, I don't know, it just makes you as a filmer feel so fucking good. You're like, oh, sweet, this guy really gives a shit, and he's really keen, and he's obviously amazing. And it's just like it's a breeze. It's so easy. But as you get older, it almost feels like there's less and less people that fulfill that criteria. Either they're too young to get it, or they've moved away. So it just sort of, I think for me, the only difficult thing has just been like having a smaller pool of people to work through, consistently just getting smaller, and just feeling more isolated. And because of my self-inflicted south of the M25 rule, I am making it hard on myself to only film with people only film in this area.
There are people like Quim. Quim for me he's not an easy person to work with, and not meaning that he's awesome.
Yeah.
But he's very flighty, you know, like I would make plans to meet him all the time. I'd be at the spot and he just would never show up, and I wouldn't hear from him for 2 months. But I was curious with Dan. I was super intrigued by the little bit I saw of Ben Job and for its first broadcast, right? That he's skating.
Yeah.
Is he?
I mean, that's my stupid. I mean, really, looking back at it now, I should have just had a camera on him for the whole time. It was just like, oh, let's see some Ben Job, see some giggles. But looking back, it's like, idiot, man. Why did you just go get a full part? You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, if we talk about nightmares, like Chewy was always a very difficult person to. I mean, I love Chewy, but he just had like weed issues or whatever, you know what I mean? He's obviously making no secret of it. You know, he smoked a lot of weed, and it was hard to get him down because at the time he was like living in Norfolk and we had no budget, and he always like had to kind of have weed, and he was kind of a bit like intimidated by London, so it was like tough to get him to film. But I actually loved Chewy, and I loved filming him, and I thought it was my original plan that Chewy's going to have last part in Lost and Found, and make friends, but he kind of like didn't really kind of go for it, you know what I mean? He didn't really go for it. But what I've learned is, especially with something like Blueprint, where it's a little bit more orchestrated in terms of people that you have in a part, there's people that kind of realise what you're doing and really want to go for it, and those are the people that have the best parts. Like,
right, totally.
Like for me now, Connor, like asked me to depart because he wanted a part made by, like, orchestrated by me, and so he went for it, and that's why I think it kind of turned out good. Kevin, when I went to them, he kind of really wanted it. Shire, Baines, they always really understood, but there was other people that like almost didn't appreciate being put on Blueprint.
Right,
you know what I mean?
right.
Like in Lost and Found, there's a couple of people which are like, I feel like they only want to write for Blueprint because they knew it was kind of the best company at the time and they get free boards. But when they were living it, they realized they kind of were maybe outranked by people in terms of like, oh, you've been here longer, this guy is actually gnarlier than you, so you kind of got to step up. And then they were like, oh, well, I'm not really into it, you know what I mean? So it's like, oh, well, you know what I mean? in Lost and Found, which, you know, we didn't really know what it was going to be back then, but it's like, to this day, I don't know if they appreciate being in that video. You know what I mean?
Mm. But I just asked because of the Ben Job thing. The Ben Job thing, he always intrigued me on a similar level to like a Quim or something like that. But
but it's like this. So if I see Ben Job now, hopefully one watch this. There's some people where you're walking down the street and then like, you see in the distance, you're like, there's Ben Job, whatever. You're like, fuck, I cannot have this conversation right now. What? Did you turn or whatever? It's a little bit of that situation.
Yeah. There's like two benefits to it. A, I get the pleasure of getting to, you know, have these guys that I'm a huge fan of in the video, but it's also you're like you're introducing them to a whole, you know, maybe a new audience, you know, where you have like in this video, you have like Brett, who's like when I first started filming with him, he was like 20, you know, so like a young kid, and then you have KT, who's literally a grandfather, you know. So you know, it's like it helps reintroduce these guys that, in my opinion, are critical pillars of like the definition of style, which is something that can't really necessarily be described. You know, we're all challenged, you know, anytime we write an article or like, because all four of us have done, you know, stuff where you're like trying to explain this to a certain degree, and it's like it's inexplicable through words, but these certain characters have been, you know, Quim to me is like, he is like almost the pinnacle of style in the history of at least in East Coast skateboarding. But to have those guys in the video is a huge honor, obviously, and it to me it gives the video to me a sense of like more validity. You know, it's like these guys, for them to be in the video is such an honor for the video. But then, like I said, it also introduces these guys to some young kids who might have heard of them but not known, you know, or cared to look them up. Like the idea of like a kid could get inspired by a Jamal part in 2023, and he had a part in Eastern Exposure in 1996. You know what I mean? It's incredible that that's still a possibility. So I barely know Kevin. You know, I filmed him for Static 1. I filmed a few things of him, and then I'd see him at you know, contests or things, and he's such a nice dude, always super fucking cool. But I'm intimidated by him because I don't know, because of his history and his like, I don't know, there's certain dudes like, you know, if I see Rick Howard, I'm fucking like I'm still so intimidated by him. So Kevin Taylor, thankfully I had help with his part, but it could have been, you know, it's like I always look back on like Quim's part, it could have been better if I had the balls to like break through more of that uncomfortability to make it happen. You know what I mean?
Do you think he had Quim at the time when he was like capable?
No, for sure. Yeah. No, I mean his part, when I finally saw his overground broadcasting part, that Marita part that he did, it's fucking, and I was working on his Static 4 part when I saw the Marita part, and it's his best part. I think it's peak. It's his physical. He's at his physical peak. His skating. It's so fucking good. Yeah. But it's just like, and Julio, just talking about different, you know, people that are kind of like a challenge in a different way. Julio is like notoriously, you know, difficult in so many ways, but he's so fucking, like, you can have an amazing conversation with him, even at like 5 minutes after you got in a huge fight with him. You can have an amazing conversation, and he's so funny that it's like you're still willing to go through the shit with him. I
mean, that's my top. That's in my top 5 parts. Is his static part. You know what I mean? Like that. That is. Apart from the fact that like the one thing that sticks out is like when he always going about spots, but then he's got a skate park trick, and I'm like, how did he and Josh like let that in? Is the one thing that tweaks me out. But apart from that, it's like perfect part. You know what I mean?
He has these weird. I mean, the last bit in Static 4, I told him, you know, the last thing I need to do is reach out to Bobby Pulio after all the shit he's put me through and say, yo, I want to have something of you in the video. Are you cool with that? But I do, because I think his skating's important. Obviously, his hit, you know, I love his skating and blah blah blah. So I do it, and he's like, I'll only do it on one condition. that you use this skate park clip because it's gonna, and this is Static 4. He has a skate park clip in that one too. He's like, it's gonna make people think. I'm like, I don't know. Like maybe there's 5 people who might actually think, but I'll do it.
Where you from? You tough?
I'm from New Jersey.
I don't give a fuck. I'm from I'm from fucking East New York, Brooklyn. I'll tie you the fuck up. I'll cut your throat from your fucking head. I just came from records on. Oh, that's gangster.
You know, just in terms of someone who I think Josh could have maybe changed their career direction, would have been sick to see a Danny Wainwright part, even though it's like not like, oh, Danny Wainwright's got the most amazing style. I think he needed somebody like Josh to kind of hone in on the spots he skated and like take him out of Bristol and take him on some trips and like put him in the mix a little bit. I think that would have been really interesting to see.
Danny is somebody I honestly wasn't. I mean, obviously I knew of Danny and I seen stuff and was fully aware of him forever, but it was only about like I DM'd him, or I think it was a DM. It must have been like maybe like 6 years ago about that, like seeing his, because he's been good about reposting his old stuff, and then he had that part in Overground Broadcasting too, and you're right, he's one of those dudes that in hindsight, I missed the opportunity for the timing, but in hindsight, I'm like, damn, you're totally spot on. He's one of those few guys where I'm like, fuck, he would have been so sick to do something with, because he's basically slept on talent, and he had that, no offense to Powell, but he was just paired with the wrong brand, and exactly. He stuck with them through his whole career, and it's like, it's such a shame that people don't know how sick maybe people do. I'm just saying I didn't know really until later on.
There's certain skaters who sort of fulfill the criteria of being those sort of underground appreciated skaters. They might have put quite a lot of stuff out, but they're like still sort of underground. So you're like Dick Rizzo's or Nick Matthews or something. Like I could imagine them having a part in 6, because they're just like underground sort of footage machines in their own sort of worlds. But then I think one of the people that I guess I thought would have had a part in 6, given his sort of like Theories of Atlantis character arc, is that Niall Lovett guy, because he's amazing, but he obviously put out those parts with Theories and up through other projects and stuff. But I could have seen him having a part in 6, just because he's just incredible. But like he is the kind of that underground sort of peripheral character who you're really good at finding, you know what I mean, and shining a light on.
Is there anyone that you look at past or present that's like, oh, this guy, he just skates the wrong spots, if only I could take him and just get him out of his like these shit spots or shit clothes or whatever, then I feel like he could be amazing. Well, I say that because I don't know. Like Damon's got a trick in New York, and he's wearing like some fucking Adidas tracksuit that looks a bit ropey, and he's wearing his hat. But like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like somebody that you always see in one environment is like, this guy just skated New York. It will be amazing. You know what I mean? Is there anyone that you just like gagging to get?
There's definitely characters like that, but somebody that comes to mind, but not in that exact. Not in that insulting way. They're just in a somebody who's in a completely different world, and it would be so sick to see him skate like real, like actual city, New York City or like Chicago, London kinds of spots with a VX filmer would be day one. I think that would be such a super interesting experiment, and I think he would fucking love it too.
Yeah, I feel like with day one, like there was just a period of time where like maybe 10 years where he was potentially like at his peak of skating, which is probably in like maybe the mid 2010s or like late or the early 2010s, where like all the stuff coming out was just filmed. It was like Brocam for like 5 years. I swear it was just like the person filming, like, no, they're probably just homies or whatever, but they just didn't know what they were doing. And he's got some of his maybe best footage, and you can it doesn't give it any justice. And I always wished growing up, like watching his stuff, that there was just a bit of a better production value in some of it, because some of it was just so.
Colin Kennedy stuff's good, but he's just getting California, isn't he? You know what I mean? Colin Kennedy stuff's amazing. You know what I mean?
I think collectively, all three of us, and yeah, I'm throwing myself in on this too, is we make videos that aren't there. There's videos, which is, like I said, what most videos are nowadays online, but then there's where the skaters are they are the stars. They're the most important thing. But then there's videos like I'm saying, the three of us try to make, where we inject a lot of ourselves into it. So it's not, you know, like you said, yeah, it is for the skaters. It's their video parts, but we try to make something where it's like I said, the difference between a Wes Anderson film or like I can't even think of another example, or like a Fast and Furious, you know, where it's like there's no style injected into a movie that's just a story, but then there's a filmmaker who injects style into it, so that, you know, where it's a collect, you know, it's this group. It really, the filmmaker becomes just as important as the skaters, is my point. So the premiere, it gives everybody that resolution, that completion, you know, where it's like working. It's like if you didn't have a premiere in a theater, or like a space with a bunch of people there to enjoy it at once for their first time. It's like working on an assembly line in an auto factory and never getting to see the final product. You know what I mean? It's like you never get to have that sense of like, we did this, you know, we made this. This is all, you know, I drove that rivet, you put that steering wheel in, you know, and the premiere as well, it gives the audience the lasting memory beyond just clicking play on their fucking Netflix or on their YouTube control button. And it extends the life of something. It becomes an experience instead of just that piece of media they absorbed, you know, last night in between the other 3 videos they watched. So it's like, I think the premiere it's more important now than it's ever been.
I mean, it's hard to say stuff that hasn't been said before, but like just getting everyone together. It's like those videos that you make, especially for a local thing. It's like that's what sets the benchmarks for your scene. And you just want to get everyone together to remember that time and remember the effort that has been put in, because there's always so much effort that gets put into these things. And it's like the crescendo, isn't it? It's the crescendo of the project. It's like, it's almost like, why would you do it? It's like if a tree what's the phrase, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around to hear it, does it make a sound? It's like, if you make a skate video and there's no like end result premiere, then why did you do it? So that's what you remember. I remember filming stuff with Harrison, and he'd be like, I can't wait for people to see the prem or something. I don't know, like, yeah, just like be like, that's he's, you know, you just know how some people, and when you're editing as well, like you'll see a clip and you just know, so, that's gonna go down well. People are gonna cheer for that one, like that ender or something. You just know, and it feels so good. So I think that's why we do it. It just puts it landmark in time. It just like puts a, you know, I don't know what the best way to describe it is, but just gives you something to look back on, gives you an end point of that project.
Yeah, and also for the individual skaters, kind of like, you got to remember, it's not really your video, it's kind of their video, you know, because it's to showcase them, which is always a bit, you know, why I always think, if you're not going to make someone look the best they can be in a video thing, then why bother doing it? You know, but it's for them to remember, you know.
It's like in Philadelphia, the first people came up with like 7 or 8 kids who were all under 20, which was like rare, you know, and they were just standing around me as I was like trying to get my stuff together, and each one was saying like they just seemed like they had never seen a full-length video almost, but by their reactions. And it was so cool to be like, have young kids being, they were just like, thanks for doing that, that was so cool. And it was just like, you know, so like comforting or rewarding, you know, to have somebody like see their reaction, because otherwise you never get to see the reaction ever. You never get to see anybody's first reaction, because that's where it's the most important, that first impression. And the last thing I'll say, sorry, because this is like a big topic for me, obviously, is every time I'm about to do the premiere, I'm so I'm like, I'm never doing this again. And it's at the premiere when you get that a lot of times. You get that dose of like, oh, dopamine, where you're just like, oh my God, this feels so, I have to do this again. You know what I mean? It's so like the energy from it is so like, it recharges you so much to feeling like, man, this is why, this makes it all worthwhile, essentially.
I better split. I've well outstayed my welcome, mate.
Nah, I thought yeah.
Oh, I haven't got.
where's
She didn't
your
make
tea?
one. She didn't make me tea.
Just wanted to say as well, guys, like, thanks so much for having me part of this. I'm definitely I feel if anyone had told me 3 years ago I'd be on a call with you guys, I would have not believed them. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, and thanks to Josh for doing it. I don't, mate, you're mad. I don't know why you do it. Well, you just explained why you do it, but you're mad still. You're madman.
Yeah. Likewise. I mean,
Well,
we're all insane for doing it once and then continue to do it again.
so yeah, I got to shoot, but I'll see you for the Static 7.
Right.
Yeah, 2035, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
See you guys in
Exactly.
Won't surprise
2035.
me. Right, good to see you all.
Yeah. Same here. Thanks,
Cheers,
Dan.
mate. See ya, bye.
Devastating, I got your heart pulsating. Kool-Aid, you need aid, ejaculating. Rhymes like semen, MCs are scheming, trying to bag me, baby black. You must be beaming, fiending. I don't know who gassed your head up. I'm straight up, for less niggas have got wet up. I'm on a mission, scrambling my enemy's transmission. And when he least expect it, run up in his HQ. High IQ, every verse is EQ'd. Sliver like a snake, still you can't elude. The never, but not Caneza. It's the toucher, no gun or guard can protect ya. Neither the scripture, choke like a boa constrictor. This is my house and I'll evict ya. Big respect is automatic. Black.